I would never kill a wild turkey. So our landlord knows about the rats.
As a single woman with a single income, what would you say your rule of thumb is for like price range?
But as a single woman, it was safer for me to go. I don't really care.
Should we clink to like finally catching up after
4 years? Yeah.
Yeah. Traveling, which I don't think I would have ever expected.
No. No, it's kind of weird to think like we're roommates and then we both moved to Waco and now we're both traveling.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. We've gone both different ways, but we've both kind of done the same thing.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Oh, you're gonna lay down there? You don't want to be on the camera? Okay.
It's cooler down there.
There's my travel buddy. You can't see him.
Now you're traveling.
Mm-hmm.
You are an ER nurse.
Yes.
We've been nurses
4 years?
4 years. Which, I don't know if you've ever done this, but I used to do this. I used to round up.
Oh,
when I was a baby nurse, I used to round up and say that I was experienced for like 2 years when I was like 6 months in or something like that.
Oh, I would just round up to the year. It'd be like, I'm at like a year and a half and I'd just tell them I was 2 years experience because it was easier.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. No, I definitely would round up so I'd not get looked at as
like at a baby.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter. Apparently I've got a baby face and so people are like, you still, like you could pass as a baby. I'm
yeah. Like, I still get asked if I'm 21. Like at work, especially with the masks on.
Yeah.
They'll be like, are you even like old enough to drink, as like a joke? And I'm like, no guys, I'm 26. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm old enough. Which is so bizarre to think about. Like we're closer to our 30s.
Oh, don't talk about it.
I am looking forward to it. I feel like there's a level of like confidence that comes with 30s. It's like you get to have fun while you're like with a 20s mindset, but you have money.
Yeah, like I'm still excited to like settle down and like get to 30. Be more, I don't know, more of an adult. 20 just feels like a game.
Yeah.
Like you're just kind of figuring everything out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of figuring things out.
Okay.
When you want to know you wanted to do travel nursing? Or how did you get into travel nursing?
Okay. So it's a long story, but I moved from Waco to Houston for a job right before, like as COVID was hitting. And they pushed back my start date and I was changing specialties to go to kids. Pushed me back for like 6 weeks. I was already in Houston, so I just stayed at home. I was living at home. And then about 10 days, if that, before the second start date, they told me I didn't have the job anymore. So changed complete routes of trying to change specialties and I went back to the ER and I kind of just took the first job that was there. It was a permanent job. In Houston in an ER, and it was terrible. I made it 6 weeks, which was impressive, but it was just crazy as a nurse, and it was super dangerous, and COVID was high there, so like all of the patients had COVID, and they were super high acuity ER. And to this day, it's probably the sickest ER I've been in with like the acuity of the patients and their histories. So I like walked away from that at 6 weeks, and I jumped to traveling because it was really the only thing I could do. And I was tired of being at home. Like I'd moved home expecting to be there for a couple months or a year, but I wasn't working for 6 of those weeks while I was there, so I was ready to get out.
I feel like a stretch.
Yeah,
going
like
from your own normal adult routine.
Yeah, like being 25 in Waco on my own to now I was living at home with my parents and my brother. And we had 3 dogs, so it was a lot. I loved that time. Quit the job in Houston, jumped to traveling, and it kind of was just like, the recruiter was super quick and just kind of was like, here, these are your options. These are the 12 hospitals that'll take you. Potentially interview. Sacramento was the first one I interviewed with. They like called me while I was on a train getting off of work. Sorry, we live right by a hospital. We live next to the hospital. Yeah, there might be a helicopter that goes over later.
Yep, that's a normal thing.
So I interviewed with them. Took the job, jumped. I think I had like driving to Sacramento within like 10 days.
So you had to pack up real quick.
Yeah,
and
very quick pack up.
How did you find housing?
So housing was probably the worst part. One thing that was super important to me was taking Milo, my dog, because I was going on my own. I didn't know anyone out here, and I'd had a friend who traveled in the past, and she made it work with her dog, so I said, it's doable. So housing was a disaster in August. I ended up living in a hotel with my mom. She came out with me, and she stays at home with my special needs brother, so she found care, and we drove out, and we did it in 3 days, and then we found an apartment. And it was super expensive because there was nothing else at the time. So it was better to get in a house than to pay the hotel fee. housing was stressful, and then you just kind of like get used to, I guess, the stress of finding housing. You kind of just like learn that it will work out, and something will appear, something will happen, you will find something that's livable, something within your budget. And I didn't know that the first time, so I just like pure panicked.
Yeah.
And like once I found one that was like, it was $400 or $500 more than my top end budget. I was about to
ask that. Yeah. And it was a weird time too, because you kicked off during COVID, and everyone's like, don't even stay at my home. I'm not like, especially nurses, we're not like super welcomed at that point.
Yes. So I found like a 2-bedroom place that was like a 20-minute drive to the hospital, and they were fine with dogs. I didn't want to share a room in a house with Milo because he's great with people, but he's a little
like that.
Yeah, he just like jumps. He almost caught a raccoon a couple weeks ago.
Oh no.
Yeah, and a rat.
Ooh.
I know. So our landlord knows about the rats.
That's how we found out about the rat problem.
Yeah, the rat problem.
That's what I was going to ask you, is if your expectations of housing have changed from when you first came out here, like, or your standards, I guess.
I also learned you got to like look ahead. I didn't have enough time.
Right.
When I signed that contract to the time I started, I didn't have enough time. And I think timing has a lot to do with traveling.
Like 2-ish weeks is a good amount of time.
So I found that like 4 weeks to 6 weeks is better for housing.
If you know
where you're going.
Yeah.
But since COVID, the way contracts have shifted is that they're more last minute. So like I'm looking at starting a contract like June 22nd? Well, pre-COVID times I would already have a contract lined up.
Yeah.
But now, like, I probably won't even talk to a hospital. I won't even talk to my recruiter till the beginning of June.
Yeah.
So,
which is still early, like 3 weeks out.
Yeah, so it's like 3 weeks out. So you're, like, they don't line up anymore. And they never really did. I found better housing options once I was here, decided to stay and extend. I found a nicer place really quick. Because I had 6 weeks notice.
Yeah.
Or I think I had a month.
And like landlords can give you that time frame of, I'll have tenants out by this time, you can move in this time kind of thing.
Yeah. And I personally, I went through Airbnb the first time.
Oh yeah.
And I still recommend it. It is more expensive, but as a single woman, it was safer for me to go through Airbnb and not get money stolen. I had the backup of Airbnb if like something went wrong in the place. There's security. The first place I think I paid through Airbnb 1 month and then paid him on a check the second 2 times.
Okay.
Because I was more comfortable. But then my second place I lived in with my extension, we did everything through Airbnb. So it just, like, comfort-wise, for me, I was fine with it, and he preferred it. Like, the landlords have preferences.
Okay. So I remember reaching out to you and asking you what your housing situation was like, knowing I was coming out to California at some point.
Yeah.
But when I looked through Airbnb, I don't know if it's just because of this time frame that I have. My assignment is summer and everything is booked, and we weren't like 100% sure we were going to come out here, but I remember thinking like that'd be awesome because all the amenities are provided. I know it's secure, the lock is actually secure. And instead we found a place through Furnished Finder, which is where a lot of travelers find their housing.
This one is through Furnished Finder.
And it's a great website, and I've recommended it to some of my old coworkers from Colorado that have condos and like extra facilities, extra housing. Hi. And they knew that I was a traveler and going back into traveling, and have already asked me questions of like, what do you guys look for? What kind of pricing range are you? So as a single woman with a single income, what would you say your rule of thumb is for like price range housing?
So my rule of thumb in all of my housing is always like a quarter of my monthly.
Yes.
Because technically you can afford like a third, but I was like, I need to save since I'm out here traveling.
Right, that's the whole point.
I want to still, like, I have done so many things the last 9 months because I have extra income, and like I probably could have saved more. But like I've traveled so much within California that like in any other time in my life I'll never get to do. And there's a lot to do here.
Exactly.
So I do about a third or like a quarter.
Yeah.
So like a week, because travel nursing is paid in every week. So usually. So like I just took that number and I tried to stay under it.
Yes. That's exactly our rule of thumb too.
Yeah.
But even though we have like a dual income, our rule of thumb is like, I'm just gonna throw a number out there. If you're earning $2,000 a week, your rent, you would ideally like $2,000 or under monthly.
So, which is different. Like, I don't have a lot of bills at home to pay.
Right.
So, like, a lot of different travel nurses I've met have, like, a full mortgage at home.
That's their home base.
Their home base is, like, they have a mortgage, and, like, I met a girl who lives in Texas and, like, travels out here. So her housing cost is completely different. Her price points are different. But she also flies back every 2 weeks.
Right. And I've noticed,
so that's different.
Travelers that have their own, that are more grounded before going out to travel, like, so a lot of travelers I've met so far have had homes already, and then, like, 2 years. So, like, the tenants in our apartment now have a home in Michigan, which they visit, but their plan is to go out and travel for 9 months out of the year, and then they go back home to Michigan for the other 3 and not work.
Yeah.
Because they've just banked so much off of the 9 months prior. But that was their, and I think that's our goal this time too, is to, like, hustle, job back to back to back, because Todd and I also, we bring in a dual income, which, like you said, if you stick to the rule of thumb and don't have other bills prior, like elsewhere, you can save a lot, enough that you can take off time in between. Not irresponsibly, but you have a little bit of a buffer.
We're like,
assignments.
I'm taking a month off between now and, like, my next assignment because I can. Like, I have that freedom, which you don't get with a normal job, and, like, I'm going to enjoy it because, like, it's been 13 weeks of, which is only 3 months, it's been 13 weeks of, like, the harder patients, the harder shifts, the kind of...
Yeah, you really dove into it at, like, the worst time.
Yeah, you just, like, dive in head first every day.
Yeah.
As a traveler, and, like, you have to take a break, and it's hard to get breaks on your assignment, let alone, like...
Oh, you're not allowed to be sick as a traveler. Like, you have no sick time or vacation.
I, like, called off one day because I had a migraine, and I'm glad I didn't go into work because it would not have ended well. But, like, it was so, like, annoying that I didn't have sick time, that I couldn't just, like, take the day off and be okay.
Have PTO,
yeah. I lost pay. And then, like, luckily that contract didn't penalize me for it. But a lot of contracts will penalize you for missing a shift or missing hours. So
I haven't called in sick for an assignment yet.
So I was fine. I just lost the, like, hourly and then a third of my stipend. So I lost, like, a third of my weekly pay. It was all of a sudden gone.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. So it was like truthfully, I was making $2,100 a week. So I lost $700.
Yeah.
So then it's just annoying because you're, like, counting on that in your brain, and then to lose it because you had to call out is annoying. So you really try not to, and you try and make up your shifts. But one of the girls I work with now, she got canceled for 4 hours, which hospitals can do.
Yeah.
And in her contract, it says if she doesn't work a full 36 hours, she has to pay back the company for those hours missed. So it's $40 an hour. So she owes $160. Those 4 hours she was canceled because she didn't make up the work.
But it's also not her fault that they canceled her.
Correct.
So that sucks to see the money, then give it back.
Yeah. So they typically, like, when that's in your contract, they just take it out of your paycheck.
Right.
And you never see it. So then your paychecks are just super low.
Right. That happened on our last assignment in Eugene. I think we worked a full 3 12-hour shifts. We were assigned 3 12s. Maybe 2 weeks out of the 13 did we ever work our 3s or our 3 12s like we were supposed to, because they canceled us that much. But they also had weird shift changes where people would leave at 3. Yeah. And so at 3, when they'd have a new set of nurses come in, they're like, well, we don't need you. We can go. And so we're like, sweet. So up until 24 hours of canceling would they cover us for the remainder of the assignment. So they canceled us enough that we met the 24 hours within, like, 2 weeks.
Yeah, and then you just get paid your 36 hours.
Oh, yeah. We would literally get a call at 5 a.m. saying, like, yeah, we don't need you. And we're like, okay. And so we'd make $1,700 a week to just go adventure and explore, and we were completely covered. But check your contracts and ask about that.
Yeah, because it's all based on your contract. Because, like, the one I can get canceled up to 36 hours or 3 canceled. So I got canceled for 3 different times for 4 hours each. So they didn't read the contract well enough.
Right. Which hospitals don't usually have the time to do.
And they don't.
Like, we needed help yesterday. I don't care.
Yeah, and they go off, like, the typical contract, which is this one. And so I've been canceled, I think, 5 times. So the last 2, I just got paid for my full 36 hours when I only worked, like, 32.
As far as, like, traveling as a single woman, you've had like your mom come out with you and stay with you for a little bit, but what are some other ways that you have felt secure in adventuring a new area, a new state, a new city, a new everything? I mean, you have Milo.
So I have Milo, and he does have a good bark, and people are scared of him, but he's a lover. My dog for sure helps me feel safe. I honestly am terrible. I don't have a lot of fear of other people when I'm like doing things. I'm like cautious, but like I lived in a place, the first one, and my friends came to see me, and they're like, you live in a sketchy area. And I was like, no, they're nice. And they were like, no, this is super sketchy.
But you didn't have to like scout out areas or like research statistics or anything like that
before. I would recommend looking up things.
That's
I drove through it and I felt fine. It was fine. We were never in danger.
Just sit. Thank you. So sweet.
Yeah, see, now he just wants some love.
So sweet.
Don't ya?
Oh, man. Okay, so we were talking about housing. What about, aside from Milo keeping you company, how do you keep yourself sane?
To keep sane is, we did a lot of adventures on our own. Moving in August when COVID was bad, it was like the worst time ever to move traveling. So we made some friends with other travelers. The people that are traveling with you, you got to know them because you're in similar stages of life, since they were traveling away from their families and friends versus like a permanent staff. Their life here where you don't have a life here. So they're used to like, so you just kind of get used to like hanging out with other travelers. And that's really your only saving grace. No permanent staff really wants to hang out with you for your 13 weeks and then watch you leave.
Yeah.
So,
which makes sense.
Sucks.
I feel like at the end of the 13 weeks is when you finally start to get to know your doctors and your nurses really well. And then you're like, gotta go.
Yeah. I think I hit like 8 weeks at this last place, and they offered me an extension and I turned it down, and I was like, dang it. Like, I really like these people here. I got along with them. They had we just clicked. Yeah. And there were quite a few that I was like, oh, I could actually be like friends with you. Yeah. Like outside of working 12 hours with you. And so that was kind of hard because I know that my next place I need to be is back in Texas. And so to have to walk away from people that like you can see somewhere it going, like you can see a friendship there, kind of sucks.
Yeah. And then keeping up on social media is not the same.
No, but people love to. Yeah.
Like, you left me.
Yes. But you meet a lot of like really interesting people. I have a fellow traveler. She is hiking the Pacific Coast Trail from Mexico to Canada.
Ooh.
Yeah, she's crazy.
How long does that take?
So it's 5 months, and she's gonna hike like 20 miles a day.
Holy. Unless something happens.
Yeah, she's doing great.
Not that I want anything to happen, but like, I feel like usually people have trouble with their feet.
Yeah, she's already having a problem with her foot, but like 20 miles of hiking every day for 5 months. Like, how else would I have met this lady other than traveling?
So if you ever, that's the cool thing about it too, is that if you ever get interested in things that these other people have done in their lives and like places they've gone, keep up with them, because you'll be like, what was this like? Where should I check out? What was this hospital like for you? This area or whatever. Yeah,
you definitely meet a lot of people.
And those interesting stories too.
Yeah, just crazy things.
Yeah. So if it wasn't a COVID time, it'd probably be a little easier to combat the loneliness.
Yeah, I think so. I know there were a few times that I called like my mom, because we're super close, and I just was like, I don't even think I can make it through the day or this week without like a connection with a person. And it was like, literally I went to a coffee shop once because I was like, at least they'll say hi to me and be nice to me. Because like I worked in the ER, people are not nice. And I remember thinking, like, going to the coffee shop, I was like, at least he'll ask me how my day is.
Yeah.
And I will lie, and I will tell him I'm doing something exciting. It's good. But like there were a lot of rough days.
Well, everything's closed down.
Everything was closed when I got here. But there were a lot of days of just like, this like is so lonely, like, and I'm an introvert, like I love being by myself, and it was so lonely. Wasn't it, bud?
Well, it doesn't help that you're in an unfamiliar environment, so you can't even say like, oh, I know I can go back to this place I find comfort in.
Correct.
It's all uncomfortable.
And like I would have done fine if I like sat at a coffee shop, Like, that would have been probably enough, but, like, things were closed.
Yeah.
So I couldn't even have, like, sat at a coffee shop.
So been surrounded by people.
Yeah, just surrounded by people that were nice. Yeah, there were a few times I called my mom, and she was just like, I think you need to start doing this or this. And I'm like, there's nothing open. Like, it was it was probably, like, 3 or 4 weeks that were just, like, hard. And then it got better. Like, I had another friend come out. My mom came out to see me. And I'm, like, super thankful that, like, all these things happened. And, like, my friends came and were able to come. Or else I probably would have not survived. I would have come home at, like, 8 weeks out.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Yeah, that's the cool thing about being a traveler, too, is you get to ask people to come out and visit you. And more than likely they will, because it's just the airfare they're really dealing with, which now is insane. But the airfare, and then they usually will just, like, mooch off of your housing situation. Yeah. Then you go exploring together for a week, and that really just, like,
it's
brings
like
you right back.
Yeah. People have travel buddies, and that's a common thing you find when you start traveling is, like, people travel in pairs or threes.
Yeah.
And they're not always couples. Sometimes they're just friends. And you literally just have to find someone that you can, like, live with and tolerate. And that's what I've seen a lot of, is just, like, pairs coming through. And that seems to be the best way to travel, but it's not easy.
So pairs traveling together within the same vicinity or the same facility?
I've seen both.
Okay.
Mostly they're at the same facility just because it's easier, because then they have the same contract. Like, when I was at Davis, there was probably, like, 10 different pairs that I saw. Yeah, tons.
See, I was going to say you may have a benefit to traveling solo versus a couple because you have more job options.
Yes.
Versus needing to find a place that has 2 openings.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people prefer to travel in pairs because there's less loneliness. And you always have someone to do things with. Versus, like, when you're by yourself, there's more opportunities for jobs, but at some point, like, your sanity and, like, your happiness outweighs even when you're traveling. Like, I'll rather take a shittier job or a less high-paying job because I have my friend with me. Yeah. So
even on our drive out here, there were some jobs that we saw on our agency's websites that would say this place is paying $3,200 a week or something, and I was like, I'll do anything for $3,200 a week. I don't care. And then we drove out here, and I was like, I would die. That is, I know it sounds dramatic, but, like, this place is nowhere. There is barely a Shell station here. For 13 weeks, I'd go crazy.
Well, and then in the middle of nowhere, there's no housing. And then you're driving, like, what, an hour to go to work? Yeah. Well, that's just dumb.
Yeah. It really, your environment does make a huge difference, whether it's people you know surrounding you or people you can go out and meet, like, in the city, in the town, depending if we're both introverted people, yet here we are craving human interaction like the rest of the world is at this time. But, like, it makes a huge difference knowing, like, I can go sit in that coffee shop and feel much better about my day than I would sitting at home moping.
Exactly.
Was there anything you wish you'd known going into travel nursing in general, or, like, and solo, or as a single woman? Because I know a lot of people are nervous, like, traveling.
I think I made the decision so fast that I never really thought it through.
There's no regrets because there were never any expectations.
There were no expectations. Honestly, I think I had a couple friends that had traveled. I asked them kind of like expectations, and they were really realistic to me. One thing I wish I would have done different or, like, known more is kind of, like, pushing for pay, because there's a lot of probably, like, holes in contracts or, like, in different things, and, like, who your recruiter is, and just to, like, be more forward and, like, can I get more for this? Can I get more for this? And like, just kind of pushing it. Whereas I just kind of, the first 2 times, I just, like, was like, okay, sure, whatever. And I would not have made much more, I don't think, but I wish I would have pushed more.
You gotta get your legs about you before.
Which I was a first-time traveler, and, like, now I know I can just ask, and the worst you hear is no. Or, like, no, this is all I can do, or I can't get you more. Like, those are all no's, but that's not the end of the world.
Oh, yeah. No one told me this when we first started, is that, like, agencies and recruiters are like car salesmen. Yeah. And we didn't know we could be forward in asking things. So this time, this assignment alone, I don't know how many things we would have been screwed out of had we not already been burned by something before or just learned a lesson prior, just to be like, no, that doesn't sound right. Can we fix this? And they're like, oh, sure. But like, had we not screwed us over, it would have screwed us over.
I got a different recruiter my third contract, and we were so upfront with him of like, this is how much we want to make, this is how many hours we want to work, and these are the cities we want. And if you can't make that happen, like we can adjust one of those things, but
not all of them.
But not all of them.
Yeah. But now that COVID's dwindling, hopefully, you get to finally respecialize in something. And
I'm hoping, fingers crossed, I can get a job in Austin in children's. I need to get out of the ER.
Yeah.
It's a crazy place.
Yeah. It's always has been, but like this year especially.
I think this year has just kind of shown everyone their cracks that they have in their foundation in the ER and made them, like, the building's gonna fall.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't want to be there when it does.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just not worth it anymore. The days are exhausting. The patients are not nice. No. I got a hug from a patient yesterday, and it was like the sweetest moment. It's just so rare that you get patients that are so appreciative.
Yeah.
And realize, like, all the things that you're trying to do. And I think it's the same everywhere in the hospital. But I think in the ER, it's a little bit worse because people are just angry.
Yeah.
And a lot of them...
It's at their worst moment.
Yeah, it's at their worst moment, and you have to forgive them for that.
It's
just all... Yeah, your 36 hours a week is more than enough. I don't know how people work more.
No, dude, yeah.
I think we
hit things pretty thoroughly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And that really echoed.
What's up there?
Oh,
there we go. This is what he does all day.
Okay. All right, we're gonna wrap it up here. Thank you guys for watching my video. If you want to see more of this stuff, if you have any questions, if anything we haven't answered, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Hit subscribe and that little, what's it called, like a bell alert key, so you know when I post my videos. I post every Thursday. I also post things often on, start flashing you with this butt. I post on Instagram just about every day, every other day-ish, but you'll find me there if you want to talk to me there. But yeah, thank you, Chloe, for answering questions and hopefully reinforcing some things. Oh, it got dark. Hello? Hello? There we go.
Adjusted.
Hopefully reinforce some questions that people may have needed to hear if they're on the fence about traveling and traveling solo. But I will see you guys next week. Thanks for listening to us this week.
Yes.
Bye.